How's everybody doing today? On this approximately spring-like day. We're approaching spring, and I couldn't be happier. My mood has improved 75%.
Much better than the winter day we had yesterday.
Yes. Did anybody do anything exciting this weekend? Given that it was freezing? Okay. We're just going to wait for Brian Simon, our academic chair, to join us, guys. He should be here in a minute. He said he's popping in. There he is. Speak of the devil. I already asked everyone how they're doing, Brian, and I got a lot of blank stares and very little feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. We have a very short.
We're not excited to learn about the thesis option.
No one's over the moon like we are. That's for sure.
Really?
No.
That's because they don't know what we know, what they're going to like, how wonderful
it can be.
The final product's going to be.
That's right. All right, I'll share my screen with you guys and do this little slideshow. Maybe, yes. Okay, hey guys, welcome to our honors thesis info session. My name is Seth Fink. I'm the assistant director of the University Honors Program. My co-host today, he can introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Brian Simon. I'm a professor in the history department and the academic director of the honors program.
Brian joined our team, I guess technically it was like this semester technically, but it seems like he's been with us for a while now because we've been talking on back channels for a bit. And one of his primary goals is to make honors thesis like a vital part of the honors experience. So we're glad to have you guys here to discuss what you might get into should you so choose to wander down this path. We got a few things we're going to touch on today. What the heck is this? Why the heck would you do it? And when the heck would you do it as well? So what is it? Brian, I'll let you take this part.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for being here. One of the goals that I have as the academic director, but is to really over the course of the time that you're at Temple, to watch you and to help you kind of emerge from consumers of knowledge to producers of knowledge. And in many ways, that's what the thesis is all about. It gives you the chance to produce some knowledge based on an interest that you have, a curiosity that you have, a burning question that you want to answer. And also to think about this as a kind of culminating experience of your education at Temple. And I should maybe say that, part of the reason why this is important to me, and I think it's really valuable, I wrote an honors thesis when I was an undergraduate, and I think in a lot of ways it's why I do what I do now. And I just don't ever remember, and even now, being more engaged with something. It was the first chance I had, again, I'm a historian, it was the first chance I ever had to go into an archive and look at people's mail from the past. It was the first chance I ever had to interview people. And it was the first chance to write something long with all the frustration and kind of rewards of it. And it was also the chance really to work with a mentor, which I think is we'll talk about, but really crucial to this experience. And in fact, my mentor for my undergraduate thesis became my dissertation director and is still a pretty good friend of mine. So again, part of why I think this is so great is to, it gives you the chance really to produce some knowledge. So let's just talk just a little bit about, again, what this knowledge is that you would produce and, what we're thinking about. And at this point, all you need is something that you're interested in, something that you want to spend a fair amount of time thinking about, and something that a topic or an idea that you want to turn into a year-long project to study. And what we want to do then is take that idea that you have and turn it into something else, and also try and figure out the right place for you to do it. And I just want to talk for a minute about that. Again, we can talk about timing a little bit, but essentially this is a project that you'll work on for a while. And some of you might want to do this within your own major, and that's fine. Like if you're a psych major, they have a pretty good honors program if you want to do a psych thesis. If you're a political science major, you might want to do a political science thesis. We're there to help you do that. And one of the things we can do is meet over the next couple of weeks to find the right place for you to do the work you want to do. The honors thesis is, again, an attempt to follow your curiosity, to really spend your time studying something that is interdisciplinary in nature. Maybe a way to take your major and minor and bring them together. Maybe a way to kind of imagine a project that crosses from journalism to STEM. And that would be located more in the honors program than in a particular department. The other thing that we really want to encourage you to do in honors is to think about what you might want to produce. So I think most people think about an honors thesis. My honors thesis was a big hunk of paper, a big that I actually literally typed. But here, and that might be what you want to do. You might want to write a research paper, and we can talk about why it's a good thing to do that. But you might want to think about doing something else. And in honors, we want to support you in that, actually the creative kind of endeavor of not just developing the project, but thinking about the delivery of it. So say you want to do a podcast. You're interested in podcasts, that seems like a good medium. Honors is the place to maybe do that. Say you want to do a film, a short documentary or a feature film that you're going to do research for and create either a dramatic version or, again, a documentary. Honors might be the place for that. Say you want to do research and create a performance, something that people can engage with, and you want to set up, including, getting the space set up, getting the performer set up. That might be the place for honors. We want to encourage you to think in the most creative ways and the ways that most stimulate you the most about how to deliver this project. And I think maybe the last thing, two other things to think about here is you're not going to do this on your own. As daunting as it might seem, or as kind of amorphous as it might seem, one of the things that we want to get you thinking about almost from the very beginning is finding a faculty mentor, somebody who you've already worked with before, someone that we can recommend to you, someone who you feel like you can click with. Because one of the great things about working on an honors project is that kind of intense, kind of consistent relationship with a faculty member who's going to push your thinking, who's going to push you to develop the idea better. It's going to help you sort of with the final project and create a relationship. One of the things that we've learned is that people who get the most out of their college experience, one of the key variables here is a relationship with a mentor. And I know that was true for me. And I know I think about that when undergraduates approach me to kind of work with them. It's that chance to kind of talk about ideas in a faculty member's office, but often the conversation can go in other directions and sort of, engage you in all kinds of different ways. So one of the first things we want to do is sort of think about that faculty mentor. And I already talked about it just again, kind of looking at this slide. The product's not something that you have to decide today or even tomorrow, but maybe by the end of this semester, and we can talk about timing. But we really want to encourage you to kind of think about taking some chances, not just in the research, not just in your thinking, but in the delivery of it. Because again, it's something you got to live with for a while. So it's got to be something that you wake up occasionally on a Saturday and say, I'm going to have to work on my thesis, but I welcome that opportunity. I might want to sleep for, an extra 45 minutes, but I still welcome the opportunity after that 45 minutes to, work on my film, to re-listen to an interview, to read a new source, to, tinker with my experiment. And I think, again, that's where the payoff is in wanting to do it, because you're creating something on your own. And that again, I just come back to that very first point, that the goal of the honors thesis beyond everything else is to turn you from a kind of consumer of knowledge, say like in your gen ed classes, right, into somebody producing knowledge based on the 2 or 3 years you've sat in classes, written, read, and thought.
I agree.
That's kind of like an amen, Seth.
That was better than I would have said it. So, and I have said in the past. So I think Brian touched on a lot of stuff that's really important into why we have this option even. And one of the key things that I think he's been really, really vital in is keeping the idea that this can be what you do. There's other options that are in some schools and colleges that are really good options as well. Key factors for this one, it's got to be interdisciplinary. And like Brian said, it doesn't have to be a traditional paper. It can be kind of any kind of project you want to put forth. I think those two things are something that he and I have talked about a lot in discussing what we are kind of seeing for the vision of this thing moving forward. A couple notes on why you might want to do this beyond becoming a producer of knowledge, which is very cool in itself. You get a transcript notation if you complete the honors thesis. It will be right at the top of your transcript. It says your honors thesis and says your title. So I always take home for the really cool title for your project. And then I always also like to say that it's like really good preparation for graduate school. Just the process of working on something that long-term can be a really valuable experience to think about graduate school and how you might be working there. And
hey, can
finally,
I add one grad school note?
Of course. Yeah.
Having just gone through PhD applications, one thing, at least in the humanities, that you would need to apply to grad school is a sample of work. And, that could be your capstone if you're in a major, but one thing that this would do, again, if we're thinking about, this is a conversation we can have, like if you come to me and say, look, I'm interested in going to grad school, this would give you a really good sample to submit to support your application. And again, not something to scoff at. I've read and looked at a lot of files where people have interesting topics, but they just didn't give themselves the chance to show that they could do that kind of work, and it makes it hard to evaluate a file.
Yeah, I think it can really set you apart if you have something of this, like this substantial. It can really be a huge boon to your application process. Yeah, so that's, and then the last thing is really like self-serving, in that you have a chance to really investigate something that you are very passionate or interested in, which you may not have been able to do in an academic setting before. So your chance to really nerd it up and get into something that you love that may not have been hit on by any of the courses you've taken so far. I think that's really a valuable piece of this, that we know our students love things. We're very passionate about what they love. And I think that this gives them a chance to really dive deep on those kinds of things specifically. So I know we've got a mix of years here. And part of this process of Bryant coming in is that we're going to be running like a double cohort next year. So we're going to give you 2 timelines, okay? If you are a rising senior, so if you're a junior right now and you'll be a senior next year, this will be your timeline. And then I'm going to jump to the next slide, which will be for pretty much everyone else. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what that means. So right now you're in an initial interest meeting. That's the junior spring. And then during the summer, the goal is really to think about what your project is going to be. Bryant said maybe you guys will be able to talk during this semester a little bit and kind of flesh out some ideas. Specifically about format and things like that. And I think that's a great idea. And then during your fall, you'll have your research proposal due in late September, early October. We'll have a few roundtable meetings throughout that fall semester and kind of touch base and talk about what is going on with your research, how things are going. Maybe a little venting is allowed. We want to be a safe space for you guys to air your frustrations, because it's not the easiest thing to do in the world. And then when spring comes around, you will write your first abstract. And then at the end of March, you'll need to have your defense set up, and you'll have a round table to kind of talk about your final thesis thoughts. And then at the end of April, typically during the study days, we have pretty much all of our defenses, which is your chance basically to field any questions. It would include someone from our office, probably myself or Bryant, most likely. And then it would include your faculty mentor and your second reader at the very least. And we would be able to pepper you with any questions we had after perusing your work. And you would be able to present that work in whatever manner you saw fit, which would be pretty fun. And you know, I've had such a range of these defenses that it's actually fun to talk about. I've had where it was literally me and the two other faculty members. That was it. And then I've had them where there was like an actual crowd of humans, like family members, people on Zoom, like all over the world had come to see like their student was really excited about presenting their project. So like I like that kind. It's really fun and like a boisterous environment, and everyone's pretty tuned in. But whatever works for you. And so this would be your chance to present that work you've done and then field any questions that we might have as kind of like the dissertation committee, the thesis committee. And those questions range from what the heck did you do here to here's how we think you might be able to improve it or expand upon it in the future, and anything in between. The defense is really fun. I think it's actually like people in the past have told me they were really nervous about it leading up to it. And then they actually did it and they were like, that was great. And the thing that's great about it is when you're done with this project, you are an actual expert on this topic. So like, I certainly am not going to know everything that is involved in your project. I'll never forget, I had a student who did theirs on bat wing mechanics. I don't know the first thing about bats, let alone how their wings work. And so I was blown away by everything she was saying, and all of her faculty mentors kind of said the same thing. You know, they're experts in the field, so they could ask her a few more fine-tuned questions than I could. But again, you're the expert, so you really are going to know more than pretty much everyone else in the room. It's pretty cool. So that's the timeline for current juniors who are going to be seniors next year. This is what you would follow. Now, for everybody else, we're instituting a new timeline. It's going to be only slightly different, but the key thing is that there's going to be a credit-bearing course involved in it. And the course is in the process right now. It's a variable credit thing. I said a 3-semester-ish sequence because we're trying to work out folks who can't take the course in the spring, how they're going to be able to be a part of this still. Like if they're studying abroad in Rome and they can't really make it work, or they're studying abroad in Tokyo and they can't make it work for whatever reason, that they'd be able to still be part of this if they wanted to. But so the spring would be a seminar, and that will be taught by our academic chair. And Bryant, you can tell them a little bit about that in a second, about what the actual seminar is going to be like. And then fall semester would be like focusing on your research proposal and making sure that your research has started. And then in the spring semester, you'll complete your project. And it'll be similar to what it is right now in reality, that second spring semester. Bryant, will you tell them a little bit about what you're expecting the seminar to kind of look like?
Yeah, the seminar would just be really kind of you come with an interest, and we take that interest. I mean, it's similar to what I would ask you to think about now and want to talk through with you is, you know, I'm interested in the civil rights movement. I'm just picking something out of the top of my head, but that's obviously too big, right? It's obviously too wide. And so what we would work on is narrowing that into a doable topic. And then what we do is once we have a doable topic, we do some initial reading or thinking or experiment, however, you know, your design is, and come up with a research question. So, you know, I might go from the civil rights movement and say, well, what does the civil rights movement look like in Philadelphia? How is it different in the North from the South? And that might be my real question. I might push you to ask a different question, and then we want to go from the question to a thesis, to a basic kind of thesis. And that structure of topic, research question, hypothesis is really what that spring semester would be there to help you do and to draw you out, to get other people kind of pushing you to define it better. Because I think it's really incredibly useful if you're in the sciences. Can you explain why your bats are important to somebody who's a music major, who's in Boyer? If you're in Boyer and you're doing a project on musicology, can you explain that to somebody else? And so that's part of what the seminar process would do, is to sort of help us develop together, going through those sequences. And really, it's the same process I would encourage all of you who are thinking about doing it now, is to sort of ask yourself what you're interested in, move from that interest to a topic that's doable, and then begin to think about how you can get from the topic to a research question, you know, what you need to read, what you need to do to get yourself there, bibliography, all of those things, to formulating a hypothesis. And so again, the class is to sort of walk you through that and do it together, because I think we sharpen our thinking by doing it together.
Yeah, I'll say from my experience doing some of the roundtable meetings, it's really interesting watching students from different disciplines approach like topics they don't really know a whole lot about, but you know, we kind of update each other on what the others are doing, and seeing them think about things in different ways has helped students kind of like either fine tune an idea or research something in a different way, or sometimes I've even had them like give sources and things like that, which has been really valuable. So it's interesting to think about like, oh, I'm a tuba major and I'm writing a piece of music for my tuba, and I'm you know, science, I do biology research on bat wing mechanics. How could we ever come in between? But you don't know what that person does in their free time. And they may have like a completely different range of interests. So having that kind of cross pollination is really, really valuable, and something that I think our program strives to do. And I think this is probably one of the best like nexuses of that kind of thought sharing. So that's definitely a valuable process. And something that we want to keep continuing to encourage in all aspects.
Yeah, just structurally, the class would be once a week for an hour, again, and give you that time to devote to the thing about writing a longer project. And it actually isn't longer. The length of it doesn't have to be longer, but the research needs to be deeper, right? And is that it really takes some systematic thinking and some systematic planning, and kind of giving you that a system, one that I've used to write articles and books, is really kind of what I would try and impart in that spring semester. And if we can get you on a really good footing with a good research question, a strong bibliography, established relationship with a mentor, we kind of got you guaranteed for success, right? We've got the things in place that will guarantee that success moving into your senior year, or, you know, whatever year it is, but that year-long sequence.
Yeah. I'm just answering a question in the chat about availability for the course. Yeah, and one other thing that I didn't note, which I think is one of the cooler aspects of this recently, is you actually have the option and opportunity to have your work in a digital repository in Charles Library. So over the last few years, we've collected, and anyone who's done the project over the last 3 years has had, and we've actually gone back in time now and started doing some of the other ones, has had their work published through a digital repository in Charles. So your work will live on at Temple University as part of that knowledge created here, which is really cool. And they have the ability to house any kind of product. So if it's audio, video, if it's a traditional kind of PDF paper, any of that kind of stuff they can handle, which is really cool, and something that we're really proud that we can offer our students, and something that our current students can take a look at and say like, oh, like Temple Honors students are doing pretty amazing things. And that's because they are. Okay, so general rundown now. Jack, the how it's decided is if you want it to be, it gets published there. So it's up to the student who creates the project whether or not it goes into the repository or not. We take everyone and say, hey, do you want to have this basically live on in Charles? And if you say yes, then you can. I know a few students haven't wanted it to be. I don't know what their reasons were. The work was perfectly awesome, but there was some reason that they didn't want it to be done. So, okay. And then finally, if you want to chat in more detail, I know Bryant mentioned, you know, he's really open to kind of helping you start that process if you're going to be moving into this kind of thing next year. He is here in honors. He's in the huddle on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. You can also email him. His email is right there. Me, you can always email me. My email is pepperoni@temple.edu, or you can book an appointment with me on TU Portal like you would for regular advising, and just put that you want to talk honors thesis in that appointment booking. You guys have questions? How many rising seniors do we have here? Just a couple, yeah. Interesting. I know we've got a couple first-year students. I see a couple of my first year seminar students in here. Love seeing that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does it count towards any sort of honors credit to do a thesis, or is it just sort of extra?
Sydney, what a good question. Right now it's extra, but we are trying to make it be an honors requirement, or like count for an honors requirement. So we're hopeful that next year we'll be able to do that. It's something that we have to kind of jump through a few hoops with, but that's our goal. You guys think that more people would do it if it was? Yeah, that's what we think too. So the seminar, how it will count. And so this isn't for the cohort of rising seniors, but for you future folks, what it'll be is you have to take the seminar or do like an asynchronous boot camp thing that we're talking about doing for the fall. And then you have to have your final product. It has to be like the 2 pieces. So you have to take the seminar and produce something. For the students who are going to be doing it next year, I think what we're hoping to do is just honor you as if you completed it, then you have your honors requirement basically. Other questions? Okay, well, if you do think of questions, you know how to get in touch with us. And we're happy to answer any questions. Oh, yes, you can, Jack. Ask away. So second reader. So you have to have a faculty mentor, which we mentioned, and then you have to have a second reader. A second reader is basically, since you're going to be combining 2 disciplines at least, we want someone from typically outside your discipline to read that material as well and make sure it makes sense from whatever that other discipline is. So if you're doing a project that combines sociology and mathematics, and you're a soc major and you have your soc professors who you know and love, and you want to have some kind of math piece of it, then you'd get a professor from the math department to help figure that out. A lot of times we help kind of set those relationships up because you may not have as many close ties. And that's one of the things that we think Bryant's going to do a great job with. And as part of our team, we all have contacts throughout the university. So your second reader would basically be the second person who reads this thing. One of the things that we didn't mention, but I think is really critical in the interdisciplinary part of it, is that when I used to talk to our former director about this project, one of the things she always said was that she wanted to be able to understand more things. And she wanted our students to be able to communicate those kinds of things, right? So like if you're an expert in, I'm going to go back to bat wing mechanics again, you may be able to explain it to other bat wing experts, but can you explain it to me, an idiot in bat wing mechanics? And so we want to have people who are able to translate those things and make them understandable for other people. And I think that, you know, when we're training producers of knowledge, we want them to be people who will create things that anyone can read or understand. And so that's one of the valuable parts of having that second reader. They're going to be a completely different field. It might be hard for them to understand initially. How do you work through that, and how do they understand things like that?
Part of two, also what's going on here is we're also replicating for you some of the ways that information and knowledge production is vetted within academia, right? And so probably many of you know this, right? If you publish an article in an academic journal, it's often peer reviewed. When you finish your dissertation, there's often an outside reader who acts kind of like a check, right? The mentor is there to kind of, you know, is helping you. The second reader can also see questions and things that maybe you didn't anticipate and help you think about it in different ways. And so I would just stress this again for those of you who are thinking about graduate school. I think this is something you really need to think about doing, because it's also going to kind of socialize you into the world of academia and help you kind of navigate that in a lot of ways. And it won't be surprising when you get to the next step. And you should also not freak out about this, right? I mean, this is like, because on the other side, right, faculty members are really used to doing this. I mean, this is kind of what we do all the time. We're constantly reading stuff for other people, offering feedback. It's a very natural process to us, even though it would be a new process to many of you.
Finding a second reader early on isn't like as necessary. The faculty mentor is the critical thing.
Yeah.
Second reader can come when you're, you know, doing your research and stuff, and you might have questions about why or how this discipline can help you or something like that.
And remember, your mentor can also help with that, right? Because
Yes.
they're the person who's they're going to be, sort of understand what you're interested in, how you're going about answering the questions you're interested in, the medium itself. I wouldn't sweat that right now. I can see why that might seem like a really big thing, but it's something, again, we have experience helping you with, and it's just there to, again, kind of push you to think and ask even better questions.
And we had one student who was a math major, and she ended up doing like a marine biology internship during one summer, the summer before her senior year. And she came back and was like, I got to do a thesis on marine biology and mathematics. And she ended up now is doing a combined PhD program in marine biology and mathematics at MIT, because she fell in love with her project so much. She was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So that second reader can be like a tiny thing, but also can be a huge thing. And like that changed the whole course of her life. So pretty cool.
My second reader won a Pulitzer Prize.
That's pretty good. Good people to know no matter what.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions? All right. If you guys think of anything, you know how to get in touch with us. I know that we're going to figure out how to follow up with you and touch base if this is something you want to get into next year, even if you're not a senior. If you want to do it as a junior, we've been talking about that too. That's a reasonable thing. So we will be following up in the near future. Okay.
Yeah, I love the fact that first year students are here and thinking about it. I mean, that's the kind of culture we're hoping to instill, that from the day you walk on campus, you start thinking about what you want to be your culminating project. Which is not to say that if you're only thinking about now in your junior year, it's like not a good thing, but
what took you so long?
Yeah, right. I didn't mean it that way.
All right. Have a nice rest of your Monday. Yeah, good, Jack. Everyone enjoy this weather, which I hear is amazing.
Oh yeah, it's nice out.
Go
All right, bye everyone. Hope to see some of you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.